It's 8 o'clock.
Good morning. This is Northern Light for Thursday, September 28th. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe.
25 Republican Assembly members are urging the governor and state police to make significant improvements to the state's new background check system for ammunition.
It was clear from what we were hearing that the rollout of the system was not going to be good. So we started warning people in advance, and mainly we started putting up caution to the hunters.
Young Americans are experiencing a mental health crisis. We speak with one expert about how parents and educators can help. And the state controller's office has a key program to address food insecurity and help New York farmers. Needs better oversight. Coordination issues between the two state departments that run it may have put North Country farmers at a disadvantage.
Department of Ag and Markets and DOH didn't quite communicate clearly with each other on that. And so purchases of honey, for example, were not allowed under the Nourish New York program.
And there's nothing quite like an afternoon paddle in early autumn. We'll listen back to a paddle Todd and I took on the Grass River in Canton. All of that's coming up on Northern Light. Stick with us.
Broadcast of Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio is supported by Cronin's Golf Resort, offering golfers the opportunity to experience the fall foliage. Details at croninsgolfresort.com. And by St. Lawrence Health, whose affiliation with Rochester Regional Health means more patient access to specialty care. stlawrencehealthsystem.org.
This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe. The State Attorney General's office says the fatal officer-involved shooting of a Saranac Lake man last year was justified. The office said it would not press charges against Saranac Lake Village Police Officer Aaron Charlo, who shot 33-year-old Joshua Kavoda outside of Stewart's in June of last year. Kavoda had lunged at another officer with a knife before Charlo shot him twice in the chest. According to the Adirondack Daily Enterprise, the AG's office said Charlo's use of deadly physical force was reasonable. Kavoda was black and Charlo is white, but the report did not mention race. The attorney for Kavoda's family told the Enterprise they were not satisfied and that law enforcement needs better tools and training for responding to people in severe mental health crises. The Saranac Lake Police Chief said his department stands by the officers and regrets Kavoda's death.
This next story mentions suicide. It'll last about 5 minutes. The National Suicide Hotline number is 988. Young Americans' mental health has been trending downwards for a while, even before the pandemic. But since COVID, rates of mental health issues like anxiety and depression have skyrocketed among students. For kids ages 10 to 14, suicide is the second leading cause of death. This is Student Mental Health Week, a collaboration among public media outlets across New York State. And as part of our coverage, Anna Williams-Bergen spoke with Glenn Liebman, director of the Mental Health Association in New York.
So according to the CDC, more than 1/3 of high school students feel persistent sadness or hopelessness. Youth are experiencing a mental health crisis. So could you describe the size and the scope of this problem?
Absolutely. And it's just so incredibly sad. It's difficult to wrap your head around the despair and the anxiety and the depression that young people are feeling. You know, this has always been a sense that it had been increasing pre-COVID, and then COVID happened.
Could you talk some more about the impact the pandemic had on students?
Impact to student mental health is pretty obvious in terms of their inability to have a sort of a linear path to school. One of the biggest concerns around, suicide attempts and suicide completions is isolation. The isolation of not seeing your friends, not seeing anybody. Really, you're stuck in your room. I mean, it's just, it leads to all kinds of loneliness, and it leads to depression and anxiety. And it's a natural reflection of the fact that you really don't have linkages and collaborations, and your social network is just completely disturbed.
Can you explain the role of social media in this student mental health crisis?
Social media is a very interesting dichotomy. The positive nature of social media can be utilized to create, again, especially when you're home, isolated in the pandemic, that you have the ability to connect with people in hopefully a very positive way. Of course, we all know the downside of social media as well. It's been well documented over the years, the impact that social media has in terms of young people who really now feel even more isolated because they if they're connecting on social media, they might be being bullied. So it's a really mixed bag.
What can parents and educators do to support students through this? And could you talk a little bit about the resources that are out there to support them?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are different strategies that parents can pay attention to. There are signs and symptoms. Is someone who is usually outgoing, is withdrawn, they're not eating, they seem to be apathetic about life, their grades are going down, they just don't seem to really care very much. So parents should really be looking at the signs. Do not be afraid to ask their loved one or to seek professional help. And around, suicide prevention, there used to be a stigma, like you can't ask someone if they're feeling suicidal, if they feel that way. You can ask them. You absolutely should ask them. That's important. It's documented now. The evidence points out that it's really significant in terms of asking an individual. That's really important.
That was Glenn Liebman talking to Anna Williams-Bergen about the mental health crisis facing students. Another resource is the Student Mental Health Matters Toolkit. It's a free online guide with expert and student perspectives on supporting mental health well-being. It's aimed at educators, but the toolkit is free for anyone to use. You can find the link on our website, ncpr.org. And if you or someone you know is in crisis, call or text the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline anytime at 988.
The hospital in Plattsburgh once again requires masks for all patients, visitors, and employees. Champlain Valley Physicians Hospital officials say the change comes as COVID infection rates rise in the region. The hospital itself is also dealing with an outbreak of the virus. Prospective visitors who are sick or feeling unwell are asked to postpone their visits or find alternatives to in-person visitation like video visits. Free surgical masks are available at the hospital's entrance.
The rehabilitation of an historic cottage in Newcomb has begun. The Open Space Institute says it started to investigate and structural work on McNaughton College. That's the site from which then Vice President Theodore Roosevelt began his, quote, midnight ride to the presidency after learning that President William McKinley was dying. The Institute says improvements will first focus on interior demolition and cleanup. The organization is raising money for other work like replacing the roof, reconstructing the front porch, and installing new replica windows. The goal is to turn McNaughton Cottage into a space for visitor education, programming, and resources.
25 Republican lawmakers in the state assembly say the new background check system for ammunition needs significant improvements. Catherine Wheeler reports the assembly members sent a letter to Governor Kathy Hochul and New York State Police outlining what's going wrong so far.
According to the new law, those buying ammunition in the state now must pass a background check before every purchase. North Country Assemblyman Scott Gray wrote a letter saying the new system is hurting his constituents. Gray says he started talking with gun shop owners ahead of the law going into effect.
It was clear from what we were hearing and what we were seeing that the rollout of the system was not going to be good. So we started warning people in advance, and mainly we started putting up caution to the hunters, right, that there was going to be significant delays in the system.
Gray says he's since spoken with gun dealers who anecdotally say half of the background checks are delayed. New York State Police says the system processes them immediately, but sometimes the holdup comes when more research is needed to approve or deny an ammunition purchase. But Gray's letter says there isn't a notification system set up for gun shops to know when it's been approved. It's hunting season, and Gray says it's a tough time to make a change that brings a lot of new challenges.
We have a significant constituency that, they hunt the recreational hunters.
Gray and his fellow lawmakers say they're especially concerned about out-of-state hunters trying to buy ammunition. State police says they aren't aware of any issues for processing out-of-state background checks. The letter also notes this online system doesn't work for the state's Amish community. The Amish don't use technology and may not have social security numbers or state-issued IDs. Gray says while state police are making improvements in real time, they're already working on legislation to improve the system.
The bill that we're looking at will put a year certification in place. So presumably the state police can collect all this information like they're doing now, and then they'll be approved. They'll get a number or a card that says you can buy ammunition for a year.
The letter also includes signatures from North Country Assemblyman Ken Blankenbush and Assembly Minority Leader Will Barkley. Catherine Wheeler, North Country Public Radio.
You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. It's 8:11. Good morning. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Coming up, celebrating the fall foliage with a late season paddle on the Grass River in Canton. That's coming up in just a few minutes right here on Northern Light. Right now, listening to music by the group December Wind. They're performing at the Native Folk Rock from Akwesasne. The band takes the stage this Saturday, September 30th at 7:30 p.m. at the Pendragon Theater in Saranac Lake. For a link to tickets, visit ncpr.org/calendar.
Northern Light is supported by the Glenn and Carol Pearsall Adirondack Foundation, dedicated to improving the quality of life for year-round residents of the Adirondack Park. PearsallFoundation.org.
The state controller's office says a key state program to address food insecurity and help New York farmers needs better oversight. As Lucy Grindon reports, coordination issues between two state departments may have put North Country farmers at a disadvantage.
The Controller's Office released an audit last week of the Nourish NY program. The program's intent is to give money to local food banks so they can buy food grown in New York. The idea is to help both the food banks and the state's farmers. In the latest state budget, the program got $147 million. It's managed jointly by two state departments. But audit manager Heather Pratt says they're not coordinating successfully, and some of their coordination issues may have disadvantaged North Country farmers. The Department of Health has another program that gives money to food banks, food pantries, and soup kitchens. But that money can't be used for certain products like maple syrup, honey, or whole milk. The problem, the audit says, is that there was confusion about whether those rules also applied to the money from the Nourish program.
Department of Ag and Markets and DOH didn't quite communicate clearly with each other on that. And so purchases of honey, for example, were not allowed under the Nourish New York program.
Pratt says that in some cases, DOH denied purchases when it shouldn't have.
Nourish does not make that restriction, but DOH applied that standard across both programs.
For example, the audit says 3 relief organizations said their requests to buy honey with Nourish NY funds were denied by the Department of Health. The DOH disputes that. Its director of communications said in an email, quote, "The Department of Health can confirm that purchases of the items listed, which include milk, honey, and maple syrup, are allowable through Nourish NY and have never been denied by the department." And the department says that if organizations reached out, they were told they could buy whole milk, honey, and syrup with Nourish funds. But the department says it did initially tell contractors and awardees to reference the other program's nutrition rules as a guide for determining which foods were eligible for Nourish, back when the program started in 2020. And if relief organizations did buy less whole milk, for example, because they misunderstood the Nourish program's exact rules, that would put dairy regions like the North Country at an economic disadvantage. Now, the two state legislators who originally sponsored the Nourish program, Senate Agriculture Chair Michelle Hinchy and Assemblywoman Catalina Cruz, are sponsoring a bill that would explicitly prohibit the DOH from applying the wrong rules to Nourish. The Comptroller's Office audit also says the North Country has the fewest program participants of any region in the state, with just 16 farms participating. It's possible that more North Country farms participated indirectly, but Pratt says Ag and Markets doesn't know for sure.
Dairy is a very difficult industry to track participation in because farmers sell their milk directly to a processor.
To be made into products like cheese, ice cream, and yogurt. An Ag and Markets spokesperson said in an email that processors keep their business relationships with individual dairy farms confidential. But without tracking each individual dairy farm, it's impossible to know how many are participating.
And if you don't know who's not participating, you can't do good outreach.
That's Tina Kim, Deputy Controller of State Government Accountability. She stressed that the state needs to make sure the Nourish money is doing what it's meant to do, get locally produced food to low-income people.
It is a very difficult time because a lot of the federal programs that help deal with food insecurity, because of the end of the pandemic, those programs don't quite provide the support that they used to, and Nourish is critically important in filling those gaps.
The audit recommends that Ag and Markets improve data collection about vendors and that DOH communicate more clearly with local relief organizations about what they can and can't buy with Nourish funds. Lucy Grindon, North Country Public Radio.
You're listening to Northern Light right here on North Country Public Radio. Good morning. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Coming up in just a minute, we'll take a paddle along the Little River in Canton. Then stick around after the show for Bird Note coming up at 8:42. But first, Todd has a look at the weather for us.
Should be actually mild conditions as we head into October starting today. Highs, low 70s for much of the region with partly sunny skies and light winds out of the east-southeast. Lows in the 40s and 50s overnight tonight. Tomorrow, mix of sun and clouds, a high near 70. Light winds out of the southeast. But the weekend at this point is shaping up to be very nice. Highs in the 70s Saturday and Sunday with mostly sunny skies both days. And then 70s for highs into early next week as well. October shaping up at this point to be warm. Highs mid-70s Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. So mix of sun and clouds today, highs low 70s, and gradually warmer temperatures, highs mid-70s by Saturday and Sunday. Yeah, so there's nothing quite like an afternoon paddle in early autumn, especially with a forecast like that. The air is still a little warm, the water is smooth like a mirror, and the trees are just hinting at turning colors. With the gorgeous paddling weekend we have coming up, Monica and I wanted to listen back to an audio postcard that we put together. We set out for a paddle from the St. Lawrence University Canoe Shack back in 2021 along the Little River in Canton.
It was one of those days you have a good feeling about. Blue skies, 70 degrees, and Todd, along with Tim, the guy working at the Canoe Shack, unloaded our boat from the rack.
Ooh, this is nice. This is kind of like the Cadillac of canoes.
Yeah.
Nice and wide and big and roomy.
Tim drags the canoe to the muddy bank, but I'm a little bit out of my element.
I haven't canoed a whole lot. Which, is it front or back to steer?
The person in back steers, right? So you're the power in the front.
Oh, this is the front?
Yes, this is the front. This is the bow of the boat.
Tim definitely has more experience, but he says he recently had a mishap at St. Lawrence University's Raft Day. That's where students float down the river. He and his friends tried to build a makeshift boat, but he points across the river to the far bank.
That's actually part of it right there.
Wait, real? Are you serious?
Yes,
That sort of like rusty, discolored...
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a bunch of old floorboards and pallets and a little bit of plywood. And originally we had those 2 garbage cans strapped to the bottom.
What?
Those are not airtight, as we learned. So those went under quickly. We were about a foot under the water. We stayed roughly afloat the whole way, and we paddled the 1.5 miles down to Raft Day with big sticks that we pushed off the bottom.
He promises to clean up the pallets and trash cans. And Todd and I are hoping it's not a bad omen for our paddle this afternoon. So Tim helps us into the canoe.
Hold it while you're getting in.
Here we go. All right. That was painless.
Do that.
You ready, Todd?
I think you're resting on some rocks, so I'll slide you off.
Me in front, Todd steering in the rear. We head out of town on the river.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, thanks, Tim. Log off the starboard bow. There's a log off the starboard bow. Or is it a whale? I don't know. So we're going under the bridge here. This beautiful Oxbow Bridge, I guess you'd call it. Oh, Monica, we're under the bridge. Hello! Oh, here comes some competition.
Competition. The only other paddler we see all afternoon kayaks towards us with a wave.
Hello!
And calls, "Great day for a paddle."
Best day.
It's perfect.
I saw some goldenrod. Oh, there's a morning glory.
Oh, yeah.
See the morning glory?
That little
Yeah,
pink little
the
guy?
little pink guy. Oh, there's jewelweed.
Some jewelweed?
It's the orange flower. See the little orange flower?
Oh,
We'll see more. We'll see more.
There it is.
So, I don't know. There's black-eyed Susans. Those yellow flowers up in the bank.
I actually have my wildflower field guide if we want to.
Do you have one with you?
Yeah. It's St. John's wort or a common sunflower.
Oh, maybe it's a sunflower.
Yeah, but the little ones.
Yeah, that's what it is. You're right. It's a sunflower. I can see the stem now. Oh, Monica, this is great. I think we should host Northern Light from aboard a canoe.
We get to chatting about our other experiences on the water. For me, my parents would sail their sunfish on Carlisle Reservoir outside of St. Louis, near where they built their first house. And Todd remembers going out on the family fishing boat and tubing at his summer camp.
Peterson Camp. And we even wrote a song about it. Peterson Camp is a place I like. Peterson Camp is a place of delight. Oh, that was a heron up there.
You saw a heron?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed it.
Just up around the bend. It didn't like my singing.
It didn't like your singing. That can't be right. This is lovely. The sort of walls of trees, the wall of trees ahead of us, and coming to a bend in the river. I don't see that heron anywhere. Oh, there's the... Todd, look, there's a heron. It's right there. It's just crouched there in the cattails along the bank of the river. That's a blue heron, right? Yeah, blue heron. I know, I think it's hiding. It's moving its legs a little bit. Just floating a little bit closer and closer. Oh, it just got... Oh, did it just catch a frog? And there it flew away.
I got it on video.
You got it on video, Todd? Oh, that's great. Did it catch
a frog?
I think it caught a frog.
Yeah.
What a special moment.
So we find a spot to pull off. Watching that heron nab a snack has made me hungry.
Todd pulls out green and red grapes from his backyard and homemade honey oat scones.
What did you bring?
I brought the Prosecco. Woo! Woo! Oh, it's official New York State Prosecco, too. It's from the Finger Lakes. Dr. Constantine Franck. It doesn't get better than that. Isn't that great? Oh, it's a Riesling sparkling wine.
Hey, mine really went down.
Do you want some?
Okay.
Well, Todd, too much to be grateful for.
Skull. Cheers.
We don't need a motor, we don't need a sail, and we don't need no fins or gills, and we don't need a tail. Let's just keep it simple, we'll each get an oar, paddle out to no man's lake and float till we can't no more. Can you canoe on a little boat built for two? Can you canoe? I'll be your captain and your crew. Can you canoe if there's nothing better to do? I wanna float down a river with you. We don't need no outlets, we don't need no wires. Primetime entertainment will be lightning, bugs, and fires. Let's just keep it simple, unplugged and outside. Sound waves on the water don't need to be amplified. Can you canoe on a little boat built for two? Can you canoe? I'll be your captain and your crew. Can you canoe if there's nothing better to do? I wanna float down a river with you.
The Okie Dokie Brothers, I think they're from Minnesota. Can you canoe?
We can indeed.
I think we proved that we can. Yeah, I think we can, especially going downstream.
Downstream, exactly. Yes. We don't need a motor, but we do need a glass of wine. So
and a little bit of a current, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, that was lots of fun. Yeah. So, again, kind of a nice weekend on tap. So, maybe try a paddle, a nice fall foliage paddle. Sounds like fun.
Absolutely.
28 minutes past 8. This is Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. Just want to remind you, coming up this weekend, The Earth, Our Home, a dramatic presentation created by Canton resident Karen Wells. It's a part of the Climate Justice Program and series at the Unitarian Universalist Church in Canton. 2 performances, Friday night and Saturday night, starting at 7 o'clock in the sanctuary of the Unitarian Universalist Church in Canton on Main Street. It's free. It's open to everyone. And again, it's part of the Cultivating Climate Justice series at the UU Church. That's Friday night and Saturday night at 7.
I want to remind everybody about the exhibit currently on display at the Woodland Gallery at the Henry Pond Community Center. It just went up this week. It's called Shifting Sources and features the work of Charlene Leary and Joy Mueller. This fiber partnership between Felter and Weaver brought them together to discuss what they have in common. They share inspiration and materials from the natural world, and you can find out more about it at tannerypondcenter.org. And of course, if you're ever looking for something to do and wanting to fill your calendar, head to the NCPR calendar at ncpr.org/calendar.
That's it for Northern Light, but stick around. More Morning Edition coming up.
Then it's the Marketplace Morning Report coming up between 8:51 and 9 o'clock, where we'll get caught up on all the morning's business news. If you miss an episode of the show, never fear. You can always listen back to the archive any place you get your podcasts. Until tomorrow, I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe. Be well.